The space station called Frontier 7 was huge. It floated in the darkness between stars, home to thousands of creatures from different worlds. The hallways buzzed with life as aliens walked past each other, doing their jobs and living their lives. Some were tall warriors with thick armor. Others were small and quick, darting between the crowds. But nobody ever noticed the human pushing a cleaning cart down the hall. His name was Danny Carter. He had worked on this station for 3 years now. Every day, he cleaned floors, fixed broken machines, and made sure everything worked properly. The other aliens saw him sometimes, but they never really looked at him. To them, he was just another human, doing simple work. Nothing special. Nothing important. Danny liked it that way. While the big Valorian soldiers walked around showing off their muscles, Danny quietly did his job. While the smart scientists argued about complicated things in their labs, Danny fixed the air systems that kept everyone breathing. He was invisible, and that was fine with him. The aliens all believed humans were weak. Their home planet Earth had low gravity compared to most worlds. Humans were smaller than warrior races. They seemed fragile. So, the aliens gave humans the easy jobs: cleaning, fixing things, office work. Nobody expected humans to do anything difficult or dangerous. Danny had heard all the talk. The Valorians could lift 3 times what humans could lift. The Chromath had shells like tanks. The Sildrine moved faster than eyes could follow. Compared to them, humans were nothing special. Everyone said so. Even humans believed it. But today, something was going to change. Danny was cleaning on the command deck, where the important officers worked. He had permission to be there, because somebody needed to maintain the air filters. Most officers ignored him completely. They talked about important things while Danny worked in the background, invisible as always. Admiral Kelvin Morse was different from the others. The human admiral was famous throughout the fleet. He had won many battles using smart plans and clever thinking. At 62 years old, his hair was completely gray, but his eyes were still sharp. He was one of only 3 humans who had become admirals in the whole Alliance Navy. The admiral was looking at battle maps when Danny came in to clean the windows. Morse looked up and gave Danny a small nod. Danny nodded back and started working. It seemed like a normal day. Then Lieutenant Krex walked in. The Valorian officer was huge, almost 7 feet tall, with muscles that bulged under his uniform. He carried a box full of data crystals, walking with the confidence of someone who had never doubted his own strength. As Krex walked past Danny's cart, he stumbled. The box slipped from his hands, and data crystals scattered everywhere, rolling across the polished floor in all directions. Krex cursed under his breath. He was clearly annoyed. He started picking up the crystals one by one. His big hands, clumsy with the small objects. Danny put down his cleaning supplies and moved to help. It was just basic politeness, the kind of thing Danny did without thinking. He started gathering the crystals that had rolled toward the window. One crystal had gotten stuck in a tiny gap between the window frame and the wall. The gap was barely an inch wide. Danny reached for it, but his fingers couldn't quite grab it. It was wedged in too tight. Krex saw him struggling. The Valorian waved his hand dismissively and said the words that would change everything. "Leave it. I will get maintenance equipment later." But Danny had already found a different approach. He pressed his fingers against the metal window frame and started to pull. The frame was made of reinforced titanium, the same material they used to build spaceships. It was incredibly strong. Admiral Morse looked up at the sound of metal groaning. The titanium frame was bending. Slowly, steadily, it bent outward, under the pressure from Danny's fingers. He wasn't even straining. His face was calm, focused, like he was just opening a stuck drawer. The metal that should have been impossible to bend was deforming like soft clay. Danny pulled the frame open far enough to grab the crystal. He took it out, let the frame go, and handed the crystal to Krex. "Here you go," Danny said simply. Krex stared at him. Then he stared at the window frame, which now had clear fingerprints pressed into the solid titanium. The Valorian's mouth opened and closed, but no words came out. His brain couldn't process what he had just seen. Admiral Morse stood up slowly. He walked over to the window and ran his fingers along the bent metal. His face showed no emotion, but his eyes were intense, calculating. "Janitor Carter," the Admiral said quietly. "A word, please." Danny felt worried. Had he broken something important? "Yes, sir. I am sorry if I damaged anything. How long have you worked on this station?" Morse interrupted his apology. 3 years and 2 months, sir. And in that time, has anyone ever tested your strength? Asked what you could lift? Checked your physical abilities?" Danny blinked, confused by the question. Morse turned to face him fully. Danny had never seen someone look at him with such intense interest before. The Admiral's eyes were locked on him, like he was the most important thing in the universe. "Has anyone?" Morse repeated slowly and carefully. "Ever tested what you can actually do? Your strength? Your endurance? Anything? Ever?" "No, sir." Danny answered honestly. "I took a basic physical exam when I was hired. They checked that I could handle station gravity and that I was healthy. That was all." Morse was quiet for a long moment. His mind was clearly working through something important. Then, he tapped the communicator on his wrist. "This is Admiral Morse. I need an immediate meeting with the fleet surgeon and the chief of personnel. Priority 1. He looked back at Danny, and a small smile appeared on his face. It was not a friendly smile. It was the smile of someone who had just discovered a very important secret. "Janitor Carter, I am afraid your quiet life is about to end. Tell me something. Have you ever wondered why humans always take the simple jobs? Why we clean and fix things while other species do the important work?" Danny had wondered about that, actually. It seemed strange that humans, who were smart enough to build spaceships and negotiate treaties, mostly worked as janitors and maintenance crews. "I thought it was because we are not as strong as the other races," Danny admitted. Morse's smile grew wider. "That is what everyone thinks. But what if I told you that everyone is wrong? What if the whole galaxy has completely misunderstood what humans really are?" He pointed at the bent titanium frame with the fingerprints pressed into it. "Earth has lower gravity than most planets. Thinner air. Narrower temperature range. Everyone looks at those numbers and thinks humans are weak and fragile. They think we evolved in an easy, gentle environment." Morse paused. His eyes were bright with excitement and something that looked like victory. "But they are reading it backwards. Humans did not evolve in gentle conditions and become weak. We evolved in harsh conditions and became so efficient, so tough, that we could afford to live on a planet with lower requirements. Do you understand what I am saying, Carter?" Danny felt something shift in his chest, like a door opening to show him a view he had never imagined. "You are saying we are stronger than we look. Stronger than anyone realizes," Morse corrected him. "We have spent 30 years being helpful and quiet. We took the jobs nobody else wanted. The medical bay of Frontier 7 had never been this busy focusing on humans before. Dr. Kira Hayes was in charge. She was a tough woman in her 50s, with gray hair pulled back tight. Within 4 hours of the Admiral's call, she had turned an entire section into a testing area. Danny Carter sat on an examination table with sensors stuck all over his body. The sensors sent information to computer screens that showed his vital signs and body functions. Around him sat 3 other humans from the station's maintenance crew. They all looked confused and a little nervous. Linda Shaw was 40 years old and worked on environmental systems. She had been on the station for 5 years. Next to her sat Marcus Webb, a young man of 23 who handled waste recycling. The last person was Gregory Page, a tough-looking 56-year-old who supervised the cargo bay operations. None of them knew why they were here. Dr. Venth, an insect-like alien who worked as Kira's assistant, was clicking his mouthparts in annoyance. "This is highly irregular. We have actual medical emergencies that need attention. This is a medical emergency, Kira replied calmly, while she adjusted a sensor on Danny's arm. We just don't know it yet. Admiral Morse stood nearby with his arms crossed, watching everything carefully. Next to him was Commander Helen Price, the station's chief of personnel. She was a tall woman with dark skin and a skeptical expression on her face. Admiral, with all respect, this seems like a waste of resources, Helen said quietly. So, a janitor bent some metal. Maybe he is just unusually strong for a human. That metal, Morse replied, requires a hydraulic press to shape it during manufacturing. The force needed to bend it the way Carter did should be impossible for any biological creature his size, regardless of species. Helen frowned. Then he must be special. An outlier. That is what we are here to find out. Kira finished attaching the sensors and stepped back. Okay, Danny. Let's start simple. I want you to grip this bar as hard as you can. She handed him a device designed to measure grip strength. It was standard equipment used to test different alien species. The record was held by a Chrometh security officer who had registered 847 pounds of force. Danny took the device and squeezed. The numbers on the display climbed fast. 200, 400, 600, 800. The device started making a high-pitched whining sound. Carter, you can stop now, Kira said. Her voice sounded tight and worried, but Danny was focused on squeezing the bar. The display hit 1,200 pounds, and the whining got louder and more intense. Carter, stop, Kira shouted. Danny released his grip just as the device cracked apart. Its internal parts couldn't handle the force. He looked at the broken equipment with genuine worry. I am sorry, I did not mean to break it. Do not apologize, Kira said, staring at the ruined device in her hands. That thing was rated for 1,500 pounds maximum. You broke it, which means you exceeded its limit. She turned to Admiral Morse. Her face was pale with shock. That is impossible. His muscle mass should not allow for that kind of strength. Test the others, Morse said quietly. Over the next hour, the medical bay filled with more broken equipment and shattered assumptions about what humans could do. Linda Shaw bent a titanium rod into a twisted shape with just her bare hands. Marcus Webb held a 400-pound weight above his head with one arm for 6 minutes without showing any strain. Gregory Page punched a reinforced steel plate hard enough to dent it, then complained that he had held back because he didn't want to hurt his hand. None of them were soldiers. None had military training. They were ordinary people, doing ordinary jobs, never knowing they had extraordinary abilities. This doesn't make sense, Dr. Venth insisted. He was reviewing the data for the 4th time. Their muscle density is only slightly higher than galactic standard. Their bones are actually lighter than most species. Where is this strength coming from? Where is this strength? Where is this strength coming from? Kira was running comparison tests, pulling up data about human evolution from Earth's databases. Her eyes went wide as she started making connections. It is not just muscle, she said slowly. Look at this. Human tendon structure is incredibly efficient. Our nervous system can activate nearly 100% of muscle fibers during maximum effort, while most species can only use 60 to 70%. And our muscle proteins cycle faster than any other species on record. She pulled up more data on her screen. We are not stronger because we have more muscle. We are stronger because our muscles are fundamentally more efficient at converting energy into force. Admiral Morse leaned forward with interest. Why didn't we know this before? Because we never tested it, Kira said bitterly. When humans joined the Alliance, we ran basic health checks to make sure we could live in their environments. We checked that humans could breathe the air, handle the gravity, and eat the food. But nobody ever did strength comparison tests because everyone assumed humans were weak. And we believed them, Helen added quietly as understanding showed on her face. We chose the low-status jobs because we thought that was all we were capable of doing. Commander Price pulled up employment records on her tablet computer. Her fingers moved quickly across the screen as she searched the data. Admiral, There are 1,847 humans currently working on Alliance stations and ships. Of those, 1,603 are in maintenance, service, or office positions. Only 244 are in the military, and most of those are in technical or support roles. How many in combat positions? Morse asked, though his tone suggested he already knew the answer would be bad. 17, Helen said. Out of nearly 2,000 humans in Alliance space, only 17 are assigned to combat duty. The room fell silent as everyone realized what this meant. Danny finally spoke up. His voice was hesitant and unsure. Sir, what does this mean? What happens now? Admiral Morse turned to face the 4 maintenance workers. His expression mixed excitement with grim determination. It means, Janitor Carter, that everything is about to change. Commander Price, I want a full review of every human in Alliance space. I want them tested, evaluated, and reassessed. Fleet Surgeon Hayes, I need a complete report on human physical abilities compared to every other Alliance species. He paused. His mind was clearly working through the bigger picture and what it all meant. And we need to keep this quiet for now. Why the secrecy? Linda Shaw asked. If we are stronger than everyone thought, should we not tell people? Chew, chew, chew. Because information is a weapon, Morse replied. The Alliance has enemies, Miss Shaw. The Zelnari Collective, the Void Syndicate, and a dozen other hostile groups have spent decades analyzing our capabilities and planning their attack strategies. They all believe humans are the weak link in the Alliance. He smiled, but it was not a friendly expression. I would like to keep them believing that for a while longer. At least until we are ready to show them just how wrong they are. Gregory Page, who had been quiet during all the testing, cleared his throat. Admiral, I served in Earth's military before I came to space. Infantry. I have always wondered why I felt restrained out here. Like I could not push myself the way I used to. What do you mean? Kira asked with interest. Back on Earth, in basic training, they pushed us hard. Long marches carrying heavy packs, obstacle courses, combat drills. It was tough, but manageable. Out here, I have been loading cargo containers that weigh twice what my military pack weighed, and it feels easier than basic training ever did. Morse nodded slowly as he understood. That is because Earth's military training was designed for Earth's gravity and environment. Out here on stations with higher gravity and denser atmosphere, your body works harder just to exist. You have been strength training every single day, without realizing it. He looked at each of the humans in turn. All of you have. Every human in Alliance space has been living and working in conditions slightly harder than what we evolved for. We have been getting stronger, tougher, more capable. Marcus Webb, the youngest of the group, spoke up with youthful energy. So what you are saying is, we are all actually super soldiers and nobody knew it? I am saying, Morse corrected carefully, that the average human civilian has physical capabilities equal to elite warriors from most other species. And if we actually trained humans for combat, if we designed our tactics and equipment for our actual abilities instead of our assumed limitations, we could become the most formidable fighting force in the galaxy. He didn't finish the thought. He didn't need to. Everyone understood. Commander Price was staring at her tablet with a troubled look. Admiral, there is something else you should know. I have been looking at incident reports from human workers across Alliance space. There is a pattern that suddenly makes sense. What kind of pattern? Equipment failures, tools breaking, structural damage blamed on manufacturing defects. Admiral, I think humans have been accidentally showing superhuman strength for years, and everyone just assumed it was broken equipment because the alternative seemed impossible. Kira pulled up medical records, adding to the pattern. And look at this. Humans have the lowest workplace injury rate of any species in the Alliance. We assumed it was because we took easier jobs. But what if it is because we are actually more durable than anyone realized? The pieces were falling into place, creating a picture that nobody had expected to see. Humanity had not joined the alliance as equals. They had joined as something potentially far more powerful, and then convinced themselves, and everyone else, that they were weak. It was the greatest act of accidental camouflage in galactic history. Admiral Morse's communicator beeped. He looked at it and his expression became hard and serious. "We are out of time for subtle approaches." That was Fleet Command. "The Zelnari Collective is gathering forces along the border. Intelligence suggests they are planning a major attack within the month." He looked at the 4 humans. These ordinary workers who had just discovered they were anything but ordinary. The Alliance is going to war. They are going to war believing humanity is a weakness that needs protection rather than a strength that can be used. "We have less than 30 days to change that B-word spread through the human population on Frontier 7 like a wildfire burning through dry grass." Within 2 days of the initial testing, every human on the station knew the truth about what their species could really do. Some people didn't believe it at first. Others got excited. A few got angry that they had been kept in the dark for so long, even though nobody had deliberately hidden anything. They had all just accepted what the galaxy told them about themselves. Admiral Morse moved fast. He took over an entire cargo bay and turned it into a training facility. Commander Helen Price pulled every human on the station away from their regular jobs. This confused and irritated their alien supervisors who suddenly had to find replacements. She gathered all the humans in the makeshift gymnasium. Danny Carter stood in the crowd of 132 humans. They ranged in age from 19 to 68. All wore their work uniforms, because nobody owned proper exercise clothes. They looked like what they were: janitors, technicians, office workers, and support staff. Not soldiers. Not yet. Admiral Morse stood on a raised platform at the front of the bay. His posture was military straight despite his age. Beside him stood a man that made several humans gasp when they recognized him. Colonel Andrew Stone was a legend among humans. He was one of the 17 humans actually serving in Alliance combat units. He had earned 3 medals for bravery during the Outer Rim conflicts. He was built like a tank, with short black hair and a scar running down his left cheek. At 45 years old, he looked like he could run through a brick wall and come out the other side. "Listen up," Morse began. His voice carried easily across the bay. "I am not going to make this sound better than it is. The Zelnari Collective is preparing for war. Intelligence estimates we have 3 weeks before they attack. The Alliance Council is scrambling to reinforce border defenses, calling up reserves, and preparing for the worst." He paused to let that information sink in. "The Council believes humanity's role in this war will be keeping things running. They expect us to maintain the ships, keep the stations working, and manage the supply lines. They see us as valuable support workers." Morse's expression became hard and determined. "They are wrong." Colonel Stone stepped forward. His voice was rough and commanding. 2 days ago, Fleet Surgeon Hayes completed testing of human physical capabilities. The results have been classified at the highest security level. Only a handful of senior officers, and everyone in this room, knows the truth. He gestured, and a holographic display appeared, showing comparison data. Human strength, endurance, reaction time, and toughness measured against every major species in the Alliance. The numbers were incredible. "According to this data," Stone continued, "the average untrained human civilian is physically superior to trained Valorian soldiers in almost every way we can measure. We are stronger, faster, and tougher than 90% of Alliance species. The only races that beat our abilities are the Chromath, whose shells give them an advantage in raw strength, and the Sildrine, who are faster in short distances." He let that information settle over the crowd. Danny could see disbelief on the faces around him. The same disbelief he had felt 2 days ago when he bent that titanium frame. Linda Shaw raised her hand like a student in class. "Colonel, if this is true, why didn't we know? Why has humanity been doing janitorial work for 30 years? Because we believed what we were told. Stone replied bluntly. When humanity joined the Alliance, we were the new members trying to fit in. The other species had been in space for thousands of years. They had history, culture, and established social structures. We assumed they knew what they were talking about when they assessed our capabilities. Admiral Morse took over the explanation. But they made their assessment based on incomplete information. They compared our home planet's gravity to the galactic standard and concluded we were weak. They never considered that Earth's lower gravity might mean we are efficient rather than fragile. So, we have been working as janitors because of a mistake? Marcus Webb asked. His young voice had anger in it. Not just a mistake, Morse said. A complete failure of analysis made worse by our own cultural habits. Humans don't brag. We don't show off. We certainly don't go around proving how strong we are without good reason. So when the galaxy told us we were weak, we believed them and acted that way. Gregory Page spoke up in his gruff, experienced voice. Admiral, even if all this is true, we are still not soldiers. I served in Earth's military, but most folks here have never held a weapon. You can't turn maintenance workers into combat troops in 3 weeks. You are right, Colonel Stone said. I can't turn you into polished, parade ground soldiers in 3 weeks, but I don't need to. He pulled up a tactical display showing Zelnari battle formations and attack patterns. The Zelnari fight in tight formations using coordinated fire and superior numbers. They are excellent at planning, highly disciplined, and they have been preparing this assault for years. They have calculated exactly how many forces they need based on the Alliance's known military strength. Stone smiled grimly. They have no idea we are coming, and they won't be prepared for human fighting methods. What fighting methods? Someone in the crowd called out. We don't have any. Yes, we do, Stone replied firmly. It is the same method humanity used for hundreds of thousands of years before we invented modern weapons. We are going to hunt them. He changed the display to show human evolutionary history. Pictures of persistence, hunting, endurance running, and the ability to track prey for days until it collapsed from exhaustion. Every other species in the galaxy is built for short, intense bursts of activity. They sprint, they fight, they rest. Humans are different. We are built for the long game. Not the quick fight. We can maintain combat effectiveness for hours, even days, with very little rest. We heal faster. We resist tiredness better. And we have a mental toughness that comes from being the species that conquered an entire planet, despite having no natural weapons like claws or fangs. The crowd was paying close attention now, leaning forward to hear every word. The Zelnari expect us to defend from fixed positions. They expect to overwhelm fortifications with superior numbers. What they won't expect is human strike teams that can operate for 48 hours straight, hit them from unexpected directions, and disappear before they can respond properly. Admiral Morse stepped forward again. Here is what is going to happen. Over the next 3 weeks, Colonel Stone and his team will train you in basic combat techniques, not fancy martial arts or complex tactics. Simple, effective methods that use your natural advantages. Strength, endurance, and the ability to adapt. He looked across the assembled humans, meeting their eyes one by one. At the end of 3 weeks, the Zelnari will attack. And when they do, you are going to be there. Not as support staff. Not as mechanics or janitors. As soldiers. The room erupted with questions, concerns, and fears. Morse let them express their feelings for a moment, then raised his hand for silence. I know this is frightening. I know most of you never imagined being in combat. But the alternative is to sit back and let our friends fight our battles while we hide behind our unearned reputation as weaklings. The Zelnari are coming for all of us. For the Alliance. For humanity's place in the galaxy. His voice became harder and more intense. It is time to stop being invisible. It is time to show the galaxy what humanity really is. Danny found himself stepping forward before he consciously decided to move. Admiral, I am in. What do I need to do? Linda Shaw moved to stand beside him. Me too. Then Marcus stepped forward, then Gregory. Then more and more, until the entire crowd had moved forward together. A wall of determined faces. Not soldiers. Not yet. But they would be. Colonel Stone began organizing them into training groups, sorting them by age and physical condition. Admiral Morse watched with satisfaction as his plan began to take shape. Fleet Surgeon Kira Hayes approached him quietly. Admiral, even with fast training, casualties are going to be high. These people aren't prepared for what combat really means. Neither were the farmers who fought at Lexington, Morse replied, referencing an Earth battle from centuries past. Neither were the citizens who defended their cities during the Great Wars. Humans have always been at our best when we are underestimated and counted out. This is different. This is space warfare against a technologically advanced enemy who knows what they are doing. The technology doesn't matter as much as you think, Morse said. War is fundamentally about will. The will to keep fighting when everything seems lost. And humanity has more will than any species in the galaxy, because we spent millions of years learning that if we quit, we die. Over the next 3 weeks, Frontier 7 changed completely. The cargo bay rang with sounds of training. Bodies hitting practice mats. Weapons fire on the shooting range. The grunts and shouts of people pushing themselves beyond what they thought was possible. Colonel Stone's training was brutal in its simplicity. He taught them to fight in close spaces, using their superior strength to overwhelm opponents quickly. He drilled them in small team tactics, emphasizing speed and aggression over careful planning. He pushed their endurance, lever ender 4, making them run, fight, and work on very little sleep until exhaustion was just another condition to push through. The Zelnari will be stronger at the start of any fight, Stone told them during a training session. They will hit hard and fast. Your job is to survive that initial attack and then keep fighting. Because 6 hours into a battle, when the Zelnari are exhausted and slow, you will still be working at 80% effectiveness. And that is when you win. 8. Danny discovered he had a natural talent for hand-to-hand combat. His years of reaching into tight spaces and handling heavy equipment had given him an instinctive understanding of leverage and how to apply force effectively. During practice fights, he found he could predict his opponent's movements and counter with devastating efficiency. Linda Shaw became the team's best shooter. Her steady hands and patient personality were perfect for precision shooting. Marcus Webb, despite his youth, showed natural leadership abilities and was promoted to lead a squad. Gregory Page's military experience made him invaluable as a trainer, helping Stone break down complex tactics into simple, practical steps. But it wasn't just combat training. Admiral Morse worked with Alliance intelligence to gather detailed information on Zelnari tactics, weaknesses, and ways of thinking. He studied their past battles, their culture, and how they approached problems. They are overconfident, he told his senior staff during a planning meeting. They have fought the Alliance before and won. They expect us to defend conservatively and try to minimize casualties. They won't expect aggression from us. Commander Helen Price had taken over handling supplies and organization. She coordinated with human volunteers across Alliance space. The testing methods developed on Frontier 7 were being copied on every station and ship, revealing the same shocking truth everywhere. Humans were far more capable than anyone had realized. By the end of Week 2, Morse had organized a force of 312 trained human fighters across 3 stations. Not a large army by galactic standards, but enough for what he had planned. On day 19, the Zelnari attacked. Their fleet appeared at the border exactly as intelligence had predicted. 40 warships, including 3 massive dreadnoughts, supported by countless smaller vessels. It was an overwhelming force, more than enough to crush the Alliance defensive positions. Admiral Morse stood in Frontier 7's command center, watching the tactical display with calm focus. Around him, Alliance officers scrambled to coordinate the defense. They were calling up reserves, moving ships into position, and preparing for a battle they expected to lose. The Zelnari dreadnought called Eternal Victory cut through space like a massive blade. Its hull was covered with weapons of all sizes. On the bridge, Fleet Commander Zelkor looked at the tactical displays with satisfaction. The Alliance defensive positions were exactly where intelligence had said they would be. All ships, keep formation, Zelkor commanded. His segmented insect body shifted in the command chair. The Zelnari were an insect species with hard shells that worked like natural armor. Their compound eyes gave them better vision than most other races. They had fought the Alliance before and won easily. This battle would be no different. Or so he thought. Commander, detecting unusual small craft launching from Alliance stations. The sensor officer reported. 12 vessels, with no identification codes, heading toward us on intercept paths. 2. Zelkor's mouthparts clicked in what might have been amusement. Probably evacuating non-essential workers. Let them run. Our target is the military stations. It was the first of many mistakes the Zelnari would make that day. Danny Carter sat in the cramped assault shuttle with 11 other humans. They all wore light combat armor and carried weapons that would have seemed weak to any military expert in the galaxy. The shuttle was running dark with no active sensors and no communication signals. Nothing that would draw attention to them. 5 minutes to contact, the pilot announced. It was Linda Shaw, who had discovered an unexpected talent for flying during the short training program. Danny checked his weapon for the 3rd time. It was more nervous habit than necessity. The weapon was a simple kinetic rifle that fired solid metal bullets at high speed, old-fashioned by galactic standards where most species preferred energy weapons. But Colonel Stone had insisted on using projectile weapons. Energy weapons are flashy, Stone had told them during training, but they are also easier to detect and defend against. A solid bullet traveling at 3,000 meters per second doesn't care about shields designed to stop heat or deflect particles. It just punches through. Marcus Webb sat across from Danny. His young face was calm despite what was coming. He had become squad leader for Team 7, showing a natural ability to make quick decisions under pressure. Remember the plan, Marcus said quietly. We are not here to fight their whole ship. We are here to make them think they are fighting ghosts. Gregory Page grunted agreement. At 56, he was the oldest member of the team, but 3 weeks of training had left him looking years younger. His body had responded to the physical challenges with an efficiency that would have been impossible for most species his age. Hit and fade, Gregory said. Make them paranoid. Make them second-guess every shadow they see. The shuttle shook as it passed through the Zelnari dreadnought's defensive area. Shields were designed to stop large, fast-moving objects like missiles, fighters, and other ships. A small shuttle moving at relatively low speed, barely registered as a threat. Linda brought them alongside the dreadnought's hull, finding a small auxiliary airlock that the Zelnari had not bothered to heavily defend. Why would they? Who would be crazy enough to board a dreadnought during active combat? Docking in 3, 2, 1, contact, Linda announced. The human boarding team attached a portable airlock to the Zelnari hull and began cutting through. It took 90 seconds, time that felt like hours as Danny listened to the sounds of battle echoing through space around them. The Alliance fleet was engaging the Zelnari, drawing their attention while the human strike teams did their secret work. The airlock opened with a hiss. They were in. The interior of the Zelnari ship was designed for beings larger than humans. High ceilings and wide corridors gave everything a sense of open space. The lighting was shifted toward ultraviolet, uncomfortable for human eyes but manageable. Teams of 3, Marcus ordered. Gregory, take Webb and Harris. Linda, you are with me and Danny. Everyone else, you know your jobs. Radio silence, unless emergency. Move. They dispersed into the ship like smoke spreading through air. 12 humans spreading through a vessel designed for a crew of 800. Danny followed Marcus and Linda through the corridor, moving with careful silence. The Zelnari had excellent hearing. but they were currently focused on the battle outside. Alert sirens were blaring and crew members were rushing to combat stations. Nobody was paying attention to the shadows in the side corridors. They reached their first target: the ship's internal sensor control room. It was a small space, barely guarded, because who would attack it from inside the ship? Linda went first. Her training kicked in with smooth efficiency. She disabled the two Zelnari guards before they could raise an alarm, using a combination of speed and strength that left both aliens unconscious on the floor. She had not killed them. Colonel Stone had been clear that unnecessary killing would turn galactic opinion against humanity. Danny moved to the sensor console, while Marcus watched the door. The console was designed for Zelnari hands, but Danny's time as a maintenance worker had taught him to adapt to unfamiliar systems. He pulled out a device that Colonel Stone had given him: a human-designed virus program that would corrupt the Zelnari sensor network. "How long?" Marcus whispered. 30 seconds, Danny replied. His fingers moved quickly across the alien interface. 20 seconds later, the virus uploaded successfully. The Zelnari sensors would still show normal operations on their displays, but the data would be subtly wrong. Distances slightly off. Contacts appearing and disappearing, just enough to make the crew doubt what they were seeing. Done. They slipped back into the corridors, heading for their next target. Across the ship, the other human teams were doing similar things: sabotaging life support in non-critical sections, corrupting navigation data, planting small explosive charges on key junctions that wouldn't go off now but could be triggered remotely later. Death by 1,000 cuts. On the bridge of the Eternal Victory, Fleet Commander Zelkor was beginning to feel something wrong. The battle was going well. The Alliance fleet was holding position but taking damage. Exactly as predicted, yet something felt off. "Sensor officer, confirm fleet positions," Zelkor ordered. "Fleet positions confirmed, Commander." "All ships maintaining formation." "Why did I have to ask you? You should be giving updates automatically." The sensor officer's antennae twitched with confusion. "I have been giving updates, Commander. Last update was 30 seconds ago. That update showed the Alliance flagship 300 kilometers from where it was a minute before." "Did they make a jump inside the system?" "Tu madame. No, Commander, that would be impossible." "Wait." The officer's mouthparts clicked rapidly, a sign of worry. "Sensors are showing conflicting information. The flagship is in two places at once, which cannot be right. Recalibrate sensors immediately." While the bridge crew focused on their sensor problems, they did not notice the slight change in life support that made the air a bit thinner in Section 7. They did not notice the temperature drop of 2 degrees in the crew quarters. They did not notice the almost invisible drain on the power systems that would become critical in another hour. They certainly did not notice the 12 humans moving through their ship like ghosts. Danny's team reached engineering, the heart of the Dreadnought's power systems. This would be trickier. Engineering was heavily staffed and well guarded. "We can't take them all," Linda whispered, counting at least 30 Zelnari crew members visible through the observation window. "We don't need to," Marcus replied. He pulled out another of Stone's devices, this one designed to overload the ship's cooling systems in a very specific way. "We just need 60 seconds of distraction." Gregory Page's voice came through their helmet radios, barely audible. "Team 2, in position at the backup generators. Ready for your signal." Marcus looked at Danny and Linda. "Ready?" They nodded. Marcus triggered a small smoke device they had placed 3 corridors away. Immediately, alarms began blaring in that section. The Zelnari engineering crew reacted exactly as predicted. Half of them rushed to investigate the potential fire, leaving engineering with fewer defenders. Danny moved fast, using the confusion to slip into engineering through a maintenance access that was too small for the Zelnari but perfect for a human. He reached the cooling system controls, attached Stone's device, and turned it on. The device would run for the next hour, slowly making the cooling system work less efficiently. Not enough to trigger alarms, but enough that when the ship's weapons fired continuously during battle, heat would build up faster than it could be removed. "Clear," Danny whispered into his radio. He slipped back out through the maintenance access just as the Zelnari engineering team returned. They found nothing but smoke residue from a device that had burned itself out 3 corridors away. One more cut. The pattern repeated across all 12 assault shuttles and all 312 human soldiers. They moved through Zelnari ships like a disease, corrupting, sabotaging, and creating confusion. They did not fight unless cornered. And when they did fight, they used their superior strength and endurance to win quickly and quietly. The Exelnari, focused on the space battle outside, did not realize they were already losing the war inside their own ships. Admiral Morse watched the battle from Frontier 7's command center. To the Alliance officers around him, it looked like a normal fight. The Xelnari pressing their advantage, the Alliance fleet holding but slowly giving ground. Only Morse knew the truth. "Sir," receiving coded signals from the strike teams, Commander Price reported quietly. "All teams have successfully completed their first objectives. Zelnari ships are experiencing sensor problems, power fluctuations, and life support issues. Excellent. How long until they figure out they have been boarded?" Colonel Stone estimates another 20 minutes before they connect the dots and realize it is sabotage. Morse nodded. 20 minutes. More than enough time for the next phase. On the Eternal Victory, Fleet Commander Zelkor was becoming more worried. His sensor problems were getting worse, not better. Life support was reporting minor issues across multiple decks. Power use was higher than it should be. "Commander, we are detecting unauthorized access in engineering," a security officer reported. "No visual confirmation, but system logs show someone accessed the cooling controls. Send a security team to investigate, and run a full check on all critical systems." "Already in progress, Commander. The diagnostic would take 10 minutes to complete. By then, it would be too late." Danny's team had met up with the other teams in a cargo hold near where the shuttle was docked. All 12 humans were accounted for. Nobody was injured. All objectives were complete. "Next phase?" Marcus asked, looking at the timer on his wrist. "Next phase," Danny confirmed. They split up again, but this time, they were not being subtle. They moved through the ship in pairs, fighting any Zelnari they encountered with overwhelming force. They were not trying to kill. Stone had been clear that unnecessary deaths would turn galactic opinion against humanity, but they were absolutely trying to terrify. Zelnari security teams responded to reports of intruders, expecting to find maybe a few saboteurs. Instead, they found humans who could bend their weapons, tear through their armor, and fight with a ferocity that seemed impossible from such small beings. A Zelnari security officer found himself facing Danny in a corridor. The alien was larger, armored, and armed with a plasma rifle. By any reasonable analysis, he should have won the fight easily. Danny moved faster than the Zelnari could track, closing the distance before the plasma rifle could fire. He grabbed the weapon with one hand and crushed its barrel, making it useless. His other hand grabbed the Zelnari's armor and threw the alien against the wall hard enough to dent the metal. The fight was over in 3 seconds. Danny moved on, leaving the stunned Xelnari alive but completely demoralized. This scene repeated throughout the ship. Humans appearing, attacking with impossible strength, then disappearing before help could arrive. The Xelnari crew, bred for battle and confident in their superiority, began to feel something they had never experienced before in combat: fear. On the bridge, Fleet Commander Zelkor finally understood what was happening. "We are being boarded," he said. His voice was tight with disbelief. Multiple intruders moving through the ship, sabotaging systems and attacking crew. "How many?" his second-in-command asked. "Unknown. Reports are coming from all over the ship. At least 20, maybe more." "What species?" There was a long pause as Zelkor reviewed the security footage. When he spoke again, his voice had confusion in it. "Humans. The intruders are human." The bridge fell completely silent. Humans? The weak beings who cleaned Alliance stations and did simple work? That was impossible. But the security footage did not lie. There were the humans, moving with hunting grace, showing strength that matched or beat Xelnari warriors. Fighting with coordination and intensity that spoke of excellent training. How did we not know humans were capable of this? The second in command whispered. Exilcor had no answer. Admiral Morse's radio beeped. It was Colonel Stone, calling from the forward command post he had set up on one of the assault shuttles. Admiral, second phase is complete. The Xelnari know they are being hunted. Recommend we proceed to final phase. Agreed. Execute final phase. Let's see how they handle the ending. The final phase was simple. Retreat. All 312 humans began fighting their way back to their shuttles, not running or fleeing in panic, but conducting an organized withdrawal while fighting any Xelnari who tried to stop them. They had been in the Xelnari ships for 47 minutes. In that time they had turned proud warships into paranoid, damaged vessels that second-guessed every sensor reading and jumped at shadows. Danny's team was the last to reach their shuttle. They had run into heavy resistance near the docking point, but Gregory Page's military experience turned the fight in their favor. The older man coordinated their defense with calm precision, using the Xelnari's overconfidence against them. Everyone aboard, Linda called from the pilot's seat. 10 seconds to undocking. They piled into the shuttle just as a Xelnari security team came around the corner. Danny was the last one in. He locked eyes with the lead Xelnari warrior for a brief moment. The alien's compound eyes showed confusion, fear, and the beginning of understanding. Then the shuttle detached and moved away from the dreadnought, disappearing into the chaos of the space battle. Fleet Commander Zelkor watched the small craft flee. His mind was struggling to process what had happened. 47 minutes. In 47 minutes, 12 humans had entered his flagship, sabotaged critical systems, demoralized his crew, and escaped with 0 losses. Status report, he demanded. The reports came in. Each one worse than the last. Sensors unreliable. Cooling systems damaged. Power distribution compromised. Life support working but inefficient. And morale, the invisible but critical factor in any military operation, was shattered. Similar reports came in from every ship in the Xelnari fleet. All 40 vessels had been boarded by small human teams. All 40 had been sabotaged and terrorized. The news of what happened at the Battle of Station Gamma spread across Alliance space like a shockwave. The Xelnari Collective, which had never lost a fleet battle in all of recorded history, had retreated in complete disorder. Alliance Command was confused and baffled. Their battle plans had called for a slow, costly defensive action. Instead, they had achieved a clear victory with very few casualties. Only a handful of senior officers knew why. Admiral Morse sat in a secure meeting room on Frontier 7, facing a holographic display that showed the Alliance High Council. 12 species were represented as life-sized projections around the circular table. Their faces showed emotions ranging from confusion to suspicion. Counselor Vextra, a Valorian who led the Military Affairs Committee, spoke first. His massive body filled his seat. His ceremonial armor gleamed under the lights back on the capital world. Admiral Morse, we need an explanation. Intelligence reports say the Xelnari withdrawal was caused by internal sabotage rather than our military pressure. Yet we have no record of any Alliance Special Operations teams being sent during the battle. That is correct, Counselor. Morse replied calmly. Alliance Special Operations were not sent. Then what happened? The Xelnari are claiming they were attacked by phantom soldiers who could enter their ships at will, destroy their equipment with bare hands, and fight with superhuman strength. They are calling it some kind of Alliance secret weapon. Admiral Morse allowed himself a small smile. In a way, they are correct. He made a gesture, and a new hologram appeared in the center of the table. Complete data from the battle, including video footage from the human strike teams. The council members watched in silence as the recordings played. Humans entering Xelnari warships. Humans bending metal, crushing weapons. Overpowering alien warriors twice their size. Humans working with coordination and endurance that should have been impossible. This is unprecedented, Counselor Themis said quietly. She was a Sildrine diplomat known for her sharp mind. Our records show humans are Category 7 strength, below galactic standard. This footage shows Category 3 performance, equal to elite Valorian soldiers. Your records are wrong, Morse said bluntly. They have been wrong for 30 years. Humanity's physical abilities were severely underestimated when we joined the Alliance. That wrong belief has shaped every part of our integration into galactic society. He pulled up comparison data showing the testing results from Frontier 7 and the dozen other stations that had done similar tests. The average human civilian, not soldier, not athlete, but ordinary people working in maintenance and service jobs, has physical abilities that exceed 87% of Alliance species. We are stronger than Valorians, tougher than most warrior races, and our endurance is unmatched in the galaxy. Impossible, Vextra said flatly. We have observed humans for 3 decades. We have seen them working and living among us. They have never shown these abilities, because we never pushed ourselves, Morse replied. Humans are culturally programmed to match the expectations around us. You told us we were weak, and we believed you. We took jobs suited for weak species. We did not compete in strength-based activities. We lived down to your expectations so completely that even we forgot what we were really capable of. Counselor Renth, representing the Chromath sovereignty, leaned forward. His shell clicked as he moved. If this is true, why reveal it now? You could have kept this secret for years. Because deception is not humanity's way, Morse said. We joined the Alliance as honest partners, and we will stay honest partners. But that honesty works both ways. You need to know the truth about human abilities, because the Xelnari attack proves that our enemies have been making strategies based on wrong information. He changed the display to show Xelnari battle plans recovered by Alliance intelligence. Look at their deployment patterns. They put minimal forces to deal with human-populated stations, assuming we would be easy targets. They placed their weakest units where they would meet human crew members. Their entire strategy was built on the belief that humanity was the Alliance's soft, weak point. Themis was reviewing the data quickly, her sharp mind processing what it all meant. They were not completely wrong. Until 3 weeks ago, that assessment would have been accurate. 3 weeks ago, we did not know we needed to be soldiers, Morse corrected. Now we do. The question for this council is simple. Will you allow humanity to take our proper place in the Alliance military structure? Or will you force us to stay in support roles, despite evidence that we could be your most effective combat troops? The council chamber fell silent. Morse could see them thinking, calculating, trying to match 30 years of assumptions with the clear evidence in front of them. Finally, Counselor Prime Velkuin spoke. The eldest, as his species was called, rarely spoke in council debates. But when he did, others listened. He was ancient even by his species' standards. His crystal body was dimmed by thousands of years, but his mind was still sharp. The Admiral raises a valid point, Velkuin said. His translated voice was deep and resonant. However, there is a deeper issue at play. The Alliance has maintained stability for 2 centuries through careful balance of power among our member species. Humanity numbers over 12 billion across colonized space. If even a small part of those billions has military abilities equal to our elite soldiers, he did not finish the sentence, but the threat hung in the air. Admiral Morse met the eldest's crystal gaze steadily. You are afraid. You are afraid that if humanity becomes militarized, we will upset the balance of power. Should we not be? Velkuin asked. Your species has a history of conquest and warfare that goes back before your spaceflight capabilities. Given superior strength and military training, what prevents humanity from deciding the Alliance should be restructured according to human preferences? VDO. Chapter Leader, end quote. The same thing that has prevented us from causing trouble for the past 30 years, Morse replied. We are not conquerors. We are partners. Yes, Earth's history includes warfare. Every spacefaring species has a history of conflict, or you would not have survived to reach space. But humanity chose to join the alliance because we believe in working together over domination. He stood up. His posture was military straight, but his tone was sincere and honest. You are looking at this wrong. You see a threat. I see an opportunity. The Zelnari attack proves that the Alliance's enemies are growing bolder. They think we are weak. They think we are divided. If we reveal humanity's true capabilities and integrate human forces into the Alliance military, we don't just gain soldiers. We gain a deterrent. Explain, Vextra demanded. The Zelnari retreated because 12 humans per ship scared them into chaos. Imagine what would happen if every Alliance ship had a human security team. Imagine if border stations were defended by human ground forces. Our enemies would not dare attack because they would know that every fight would cost them dearly. Counselor Themis was nodding slowly. A credible deterrent based on proven capability, rather than nuclear weapons or planet-killing devices. It is elegant. It is dangerous. Vextra argued. You are asking us to trust that humanity will remain friendly, even after we have given you military power. Don't forget her. Anrost. You have already given us that power, Morse said quietly. Every human in Alliance space has the natural ability to be a soldier. The only question is whether you trust us enough to train and organize those abilities in service to the Alliance, or whether you will force us to stay idle while our friends fight and die. The council debated for another hour. Morse answered their questions patiently, giving data, addressing concerns, never losing his temper despite the sometimes insulting nature of their questions. Finally, Councillor Prime Velkun called for a vote. The question before this council is, shall humanity be authorized to organize military forces and integrate those forces into Alliance defense structures? All in favor? W. 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 7 of the 12 councillors voted yes. The measure passes, Velkun announced. Humanity is authorized to raise military forces, subject to Alliance oversight and command structure. Admiral Morse, you will work with Alliance Military Command to develop appropriate organization and training methods. Morse saluted. Thank you, councillors. Humanity will not disappoint you. As the council projection faded away, Commander Helen Price entered the meeting room. She had been waiting outside, monitoring what was happening. How do you feel? She asked Morse. Relieved? Worried? Excited? He managed a tired smile. We just changed the course of human history. Again. The hard part comes next, Helen said. We need to organize thousands of humans who still think they are janitors and turn them into a military force worthy of Alliance integration. We have Colonel Stone for that. And we have something more important. We have humans who are tired of being invisible. Word of the Council's decision spread through human communities across Alliance space within hours. The reaction was electric and energizing. Humans who had spent years in simple jobs suddenly saw new possibilities opening up. Former Earth military people began volunteering to help train the new recruits. Scientists started adapting Alliance military technology for human body types. On Frontier 7, Danny Carter sat in the former cargo bay that had become a permanent training center. Around him, the original 132 humans who had trained for the Zelnari battle were helping teach a new wave of recruits. Hundreds more humans who had heard about the Battle of Station Gamma and wanted to be part of humanity's military awakening. Linda Shaw walked over carrying 2 cups of coffee. She handed one to Danny and sat beside him. Crazy, isn't it? She said. 3 weeks ago, we were cleaning floors. Now we are training the next generation of Alliance Special Forces. Danny drank his coffee, watching a new recruit struggle through an obstacle course that would have seemed impossible before they learned the truth about human abilities. Do you miss it? Linda asked. The quiet life? Sometimes, Danny admitted. It was simpler when nobody expected anything from us. But this feels right. Like we were always meant to be more than just invisible support staff. We were meant to stand beside our allies, not behind them. Gregory Page joined them. His tough face showed satisfaction as he watched the new recruits train. Admiral wants to see you three. And Marcus says it is important. They found Admiral Morse in his office, along with Colonel Stone, and several holographic displays showing Alliance military bases across known space. "Thank you for coming," Morse said. "I wanted you to be the first to know. Alliance Command has approved the formation of the 1st Human Regiment. It will be an elite unit trained for special operations and rapid response. Colonel Stone will command it." Stone stepped forward. "I am here to offer you 4 positions as squad leaders. You would be training and leading the next wave of human soldiers. It is a lot of responsibility, and it comes with risks. Our enemies now know what humans are capable of, which means they will be specifically targeting human units." Danny looked at Linda, Marcus, and Gregory. He saw the same understanding in their eyes that he felt in his heart. "I am in," Danny said. "Me too," Linda agreed. "Absolutely," Marcus added. Gregory just grunted and nodded, which everyone who knew him understood as enthusiastic agreement. Admiral Morse smiled. "Good. Because the Zelnari are already regrouping. Intelligence suggests they are developing new tactics specifically designed to counter human advantages. This war is far from over, but we changed the equation," Colonel Stone said. "The Zelnari thought they were fighting a weak opponent. Now they know better. And that knowledge will spread to every hostile group in the galaxy." He pulled up a star map showing the Alliance and its neighbors. "For 30 years, humanity has been invisible. We cleaned the stations, fixed the equipment, supported the infrastructure. We were so good at being invisible that we fooled ourselves." Stone's expression became hard with determination. "No more. The galaxy is about to learn what happens when you wake the humans, and they are going to learn it the hard way." 6 months passed. The 1st Human Regiment had grown to 3,000 soldiers. They had fought in 17 battles against Zelnari forces, winning every fight through a combination of superior endurance, aggressive tactics, and the psychological advantage of being underestimated. Other hostile groups had begun avoiding human-defended positions completely. They spread rumors of ghost soldiers who could fight for days without rest and tear through reinforced armor with their bare hands. The Alliance's strategic position had improved dramatically. Human defensive forces freed up other species for offensive operations. Human rapid response teams could deploy to crisis situations faster and work longer than any other Alliance unit. And humanity's place in the galactic community had fundamentally changed. Danny Carter stood in full combat armor on the observation deck of the Alliance flagship Valiant Dawn, looking out at the stars. He wore the rank insignia of a 1st Sergeant in the 1st Human Regiment. He led a squad of 20 soldiers who had once been maintenance workers, teachers, and office staff. Admiral Morse joined him at the window. "Thinking about the old days?" Morse asked. "Sometimes I miss the simplicity," Danny admitted. "Back when the biggest challenge was fixing a stuck door or cleaning a difficult stain. Do you regret the change?" Danny was quiet for a moment, thinking about it. Then he smiled. "No, sir. We are not meant to be invisible. We are meant to stand in the light, shoulder to shoulder with our allies, even if that means standing in the line of fire." 1 year had passed since the Battle of Station Gamma. The galaxy had changed in ways nobody could have predicted. The 1st Human Regiment had expanded into an entire division. 5,000 human soldiers now served across Alliance space, and recruitment centers on Earth were overwhelmed with volunteers who wanted to join. Danny Carter had changed too. He was no longer the invisible janitor pushing a cleaning cart through station corridors. Now he wore the uniform of a captain in the Alliance Armed Forces. His squad had grown into a company of 100 soldiers, all trained in the unique fighting style that humans had developed. The style was called persistent assault. It took advantage of everything that made humans different from other species: superior endurance, efficient muscle structure, and an almost stubborn refusal to give up. Human units could fight continuously for days while other species needed regular rest periods. They could operate in extreme conditions that would disable most aliens. And they had a psychological impact on enemies that went beyond simple fear. The Zelnari had learned this lesson the hard way. After their initial defeat, they had tried 3 more offensives against Alliance positions. Each time, human strike teams had infiltrated their ships and stations, creating chaos and fear. The Zelnari casualties were not particularly high in terms of numbers, but the psychological damage was severe. Zelnari soldiers now hesitated before engaging human forces, and that hesitation was often fatal in combat. Other hostile factions had taken note. The Void Syndicate, a loose alliance of pirate clans that had terrorized Alliance shipping lanes for decades, had quietly ceased all operations near human-patrolled sectors. The Crethean Empire, which had been making threatening gestures along the southern border, suddenly became much more interested in diplomatic negotiations. Humanity had become the Alliance's deterrent force, just as Admiral Morse had predicted. But success brought new challenges. Danny stood in the briefing room of the Alliance cruiser Steadfast, looking at a holographic map that showed a deeply troubling situation. Beside him stood Linda Shaw, now a lieutenant and his second-in-command. Marcus Webb and Gregory Page were also there, both having earned commissions as junior officers. Admiral Morse appeared on the communication screen, his face serious. "Captain Carter, I am sure you have read the intelligence reports. The situation on Kelmar 3 has deteriorated faster than we anticipated." Danny nodded. Kelmar 3 was a mining colony on the edge of Alliance space. 3 weeks ago, a separatist movement had seized control of the main settlement, taking over 2,000 civilian hostages. The separatists were demanding independence from the Alliance and threatening to execute hostages if their demands were not met. The local garrison tried to retake the settlement 5 days ago. Morse continued. It was a disaster. The separatists had prepared defensive positions, and they knew the garrison's tactics. 43 Alliance soldiers were killed, and the hostages were moved to more secure locations. "What makes this our problem, sir?" Linda asked. "No disrespect intended, but hostage rescue is not really what we are trained for." "Under normal circumstances, you would be right," Morse said. "But these are not normal circumstances. The separatist leader is a human named Victor Kane, former Earth military, special operations background. He emigrated to Kelmar 8 years ago and has been organizing the independence movement ever since." The room fell silent. A human leading a hostile action against the Alliance. This was exactly what the skeptical council members had worried about when they authorized human military forces. "We need this resolved cleanly and quickly," Morse said. "If word gets out that a human is leading armed resistance against the Alliance, it will give ammunition to everyone who opposed integrating humans into the military. There are still council members who believe we are a threat to galactic stability." "What are our rules of engagement?" Danny asked. "Minimum force necessary. The goal is to rescue the hostages and capture Kane alive if possible. The Alliance wants to put him on trial. Show that humans police our own when one of us goes rogue." Gregory spoke up, his experienced voice thoughtful. "Sir, if Kane has special operations training, he will have prepared for a human assault team. He knows our capabilities, because he has them too. This won't be like fighting the Zelnari who did not know what we could do." "You are correct," Morse acknowledged. "Which is why I am sending our best. You have 48 hours to plan and execute. After that, the Council will authorize a more aggressive approach that will likely result in significant hostage casualties." The transmission ended, leaving the 4 of them staring at the holographic map of Kelmar 3. "This is different," Marcus said quietly. "Fighting aliens who attacked us is one thing, but going after a human, one of our own, that feels wrong. Somehow. He stopped being one of our own when he took hostages," Linda said firmly. "Those 2,000 people did not ask to be part of his political statement." Danny studied the map, his mind working through the problem. The settlement was built into a canyon, with high walls on both sides providing natural defensive positions. The hostages were being held in the central administrative building, a large structure with multiple levels and many rooms. Kane had positioned armed guards at all entrances and had rigged explosives throughout the building. It was a nightmare scenario for any rescue operation. "We need to think like Kane," Danny said. "He knows human tactics, because he probably helped develop some of them. He will expect us to use our endurance advantage, to launch a sustained assault that wears down his defenses over time." "So we do the opposite?" Gregory asked. "Not exactly. We use our advantages but in ways he won't predict." Danny pointed at the holographic map. "Kane is expecting a fight. He wants the Alliance to attack because every hostage that dies will prove his point that the Alliance doesn't care about colonists on the frontier." He zoomed in on the canyon walls surrounding the settlement. "But what if we don't fight? What if we make him come to us?" Over the next 20 hours, Danny and his team developed a plan that was risky, unconventional, and relied heavily on abilities that only humans possessed. They would need to climb vertical canyon walls in darkness, operate without communication for extended periods, and maintain absolute silence while working in conditions that would be impossible for most species. The Steadfast dropped them off 10 kilometers from the settlement under cover of night. 100 human soldiers, all carrying minimal equipment, began their approach on foot. The terrain was rough, with sharp rocks and unstable ground, but they moved through it with practiced ease. They reached the canyon walls just before dawn. Looking up, Danny could see the sheer rock face rising 200 meters above them. Most Alliance species would need climbing equipment and safety lines to scale it. But humans had been climbing mountains on Earth for thousands of years, often with nothing but their hands and determination. "Teams of 10, Danny ordered quietly. "Maintain spacing. No lights, no communications. If you fall, fail silently." It was a grim order, but necessary. Any sound could alert Kane's guards and doom the entire operation. The climb took 3 hours. Danny's fingers found holds in the rock that seemed impossibly small. His muscles burned with effort, but he kept moving, one handhold at a time. Below him, his soldiers climbed with the same determined silence. Twice, rocks came loose and fell. Each time, Danny held his breath, waiting for an alarm from below. But the settlement remained quiet. Either the guards had not noticed, or they assumed it was natural rockfall. As the sun rose, Danny pulled himself over the canyon rim and lay flat against the ground. One by one, his soldiers joined him. All 100 had made the climb successfully. 0 casualties. They were now positioned on the high ground above the settlement, exactly where Kane would not expect them to be because the climb should have been impossible. Danny pulled out a small pair of binoculars and surveyed the settlement below. He could see Kane's guards patrolling the streets, confident in their defensive positions. The administrative building sat in the center of the settlement, its windows reinforced and guards posted at every entrance. But from this elevated position, Danny could see something the guards could not. The building's roof had a weak point, a section where solar panels were mounted on a framework that was not as heavily reinforced as the rest of the structure. He signaled to Linda, using hand gestures they had practiced. She nodded and began organizing teams for the next phase. They spent the entire day lying motionless on the canyon rim, watching the settlement and noting guard patterns. It was brutally uncomfortable. The sun beat down mercilessly, and they had minimal water. But discomfort was temporary. The mission was what mattered. As night fell again, they began their descent. This was even more dangerous than the climb up. Going down in darkness with no equipment, trying to reach the settlement rooftops without being detected. Danny went first, finding a route down the canyon wall that brought him to the roof of a building on the settlement's edge. His soldiers followed, moving like shadows in the darkness. The guards below continued their patrols, unaware that 100 human soldiers were moving into position above them. It took another 3 hours to reach the administrative building. They crossed from rooftop to rooftop, sometimes jumping gaps that would have been fatal if they missed. But human depth perception and reflexes, honed by millions of years of evolution, made these jumps possible. Finally, Danny crouched on the roof of the administrative building. Below him, Through the skylight, he could see guards patrolling the corridors. And in what looked like a large conference room, he could see the hostages. They sat on the floor, guarded by armed separatists who looked nervous and tired. Danny placed a small cutting tool against the solar panel framework and began to work. The tool was designed to cut through metal silently, using a chemical reaction rather than heat or vibration. It took 20 minutes to cut a hole large enough for a person to fit through. Linda came up beside him and looked down into the building. She pointed at the conference room and held up 5 fingers. 5 guards visible, but probably more nearby. Danny nodded. He signaled to his teams. 50 soldiers would enter through the roof. The other 50 would create diversions at ground level, drawing guards away from the hostage location. At exactly midnight, the operation began. The ground teams made noise at the settlement's edge, enough to draw attention but not enough to seem like a full assault. Guards rushed toward the sounds, leaving their posts to investigate. Danny dropped through the hole in the roof, landing silently in a corridor. His soldiers followed, spreading through the building like ghosts. They moved with absolute silence, using hand signals to coordinate. They reached the conference room where the hostages were held. Through the door, Danny could hear voices. The guards were arguing about whether they should investigate the noises outside or stay with the hostages. Danny didn't give them time to decide. He signaled his team and they moved. The door burst open. Human soldiers poured in, moving faster than the guards could react. Within seconds, all 5 guards were disarmed and restrained, not killed, but completely neutralized. The hostages, who had been sitting quietly, suddenly realized what was happening and started to rise. "Stay down and stay quiet," Danny ordered in a firm but calm voice. "We are getting you out of here. But we need you to follow instructions exactly." Linda was already organizing the hostages into groups. 2,000 people could not be moved quickly, but they could be moved efficiently if everyone cooperated. Then an alarm blared throughout the building. Someone had discovered the incursion. "Change of plans," Danny said into his radio. "All teams, defensive positions. We hold this room until we can evacuate the hostages." The separatists came fast, trying to retake the conference room before the hostages could be moved. But they were fighting humans now, in close quarters, exactly the kind of environment where human advantages were most pronounced. The battle was intense but short. The separatists fired energy weapons that were designed to work at range. In the narrow corridors of the administrative building, those weapons were less effective. Meanwhile, human soldiers used their strength and speed to close distance quickly, disarming opponents and using hand-to-hand combat techniques. Within 30 minutes, the separatists had been pushed back. The building was secured. Danny found Victor Kane in what had been the colony administrator's office. The man was sitting behind a desk, a weapon in front of him, but his hands empty. He looked tired and defeated. "Captain Carter," Kane said, somehow knowing Danny's rank despite never having met him. "I wondered if they would send humans after me." "I wondered no. You made that necessary when you took hostages," Danny replied. Kane laughed bitterly. "I took hostages because it was the only way to get the Alliance to pay attention to us. These frontier colonies, we are forgotten out here. We work, we pay taxes, we follow Alliance law. And what do we get? Nothing. No protection, no investment, no voice in how things are run. So you thought terrorism was the answer? I thought making them uncomfortable was the answer. Apparently I was right because here you are." Kane stood up slowly, keeping his hands visible. "Are you going to kill me?" "No. You are going to stand trial. Let the Alliance justice system handle this. That same justice system that ignores frontier colonies until we make noise?" Danny felt a flicker of sympathy despite himself. Kane was not entirely wrong about the frontier colonies being neglected. But sympathy did not change what had to be done. You had other options. You could have organized politically. You could have lobbied the council. You could have built coalitions with other frontier colonies. Instead, you put 2,000 innocent people at risk to make a point. Kane's shoulders slumped. I know. I knew it was wrong, even while I was planning it. But I was so angry, so frustrated, I convinced myself the end justified the means. He looked at Danny with genuine curiosity. How did you get in? I had every entrance covered. We came from above, climbed the canyon walls, and came in through the roof. Kane's eyes widened. That is a 200-meter vertical climb with no equipment. That should be impossible. Apps of Luke the Resso, with Mana Bill. It was difficult. But humans have been doing impossible things for a long time. You should know that better than anyone. And, as they led Kane out of the building in restraints, the hostages were being evacuated under guard. Medical teams were treating the injured. Alliance security forces were securing the settlement. Admiral Morse appeared on Danny's communicator screen. Captain Carter, excellent work. 0 hostage casualties and Kane captured alive. The Council will be pleased. Thank you, sir. But there is something we need to discuss. Oh? Kane's grievances were not completely without merit. The frontier colonies do face real challenges, and they feel ignored by the Central Alliance government. If we don't address those concerns, we will see more situations like this. Morse was quiet for a moment. Then he nodded. You are probably right. I will raise the issue with the Council. Perhaps we can establish a frontier advocacy office. Give these colonies a formal voice in Alliance affairs. That would be a start, sir. As the sun rose over Kelmar 3, Danny stood with his company and watched the hostages being loaded onto transport ships. These people would go home to their families. The crisis was over. Linda came to stand beside him. You did good work here today, Captain. We did good work, Danny corrected. All of us. Marcus and Gregory joined them, looking tired but satisfied. 1 year ago we were cleaning floors, Gregory said with a slight smile. Now we are rescuing hostages and changing Alliance policy. That is quite a career change. The galaxy needed us to be more than janitors, Danny said. So we became more. But in a way, we are still doing the same job. How do you figure that? Marcus asked. We are still fixing things that are broken. We are still cleaning up messes. We are still making sure the systems work properly so everyone can live their lives safely. We just do it with weapons now instead of mops. They stood together in silence for a moment, watching the dawn light spread across the settlement. Humanity had awakened. They had shown the galaxy their true strength. But with that strength came responsibility. The responsibility to use their power wisely, to protect rather than dominate, to serve the alliance that had given them a place among the stars. It was a heavy burden, but humans had been carrying heavy burdens for a very long time, and they were not about to stop now. Morse nodded with approval. The galaxy will never look at humanity the same way again. Good, Danny said. It is time they saw us for what we really are. Behind them, the stars blazed in the endless dark. And somewhere in that darkness, humanity's enemies were learning to fear the species they had once dismissed as weak. The janitor had become a soldier, and the galaxy would never be the same. And the Alliance fleet, which had been slowly retreating, suddenly was not backing up anymore. Commander, Alliance ships are advancing, the tactical officer reported. They are taking advantage of our sensor problems. Our fleet is in disorder. Zelkor made a decision he had never imagined making. All ships, retreat. Full withdrawal to the border. The Xelnari fleet, which had arrived with such confidence, turned and ran away. The battle was over. Humanity had won. Sir, Commander Price said quietly, standing beside him. Morse nodded. He opened a secure communication channel that connected to every human soldier he had trained over the past 3 weeks. This is Admiral Morse. 3 weeks ago, you were janitors, mechanics, and office workers. Today, you are soldiers. Not because I ordered it, but because you chose it. Because when your species was needed, you stepped forward. He paused, choosing his next words carefully. The Exelnari have brought 40 ships and thousands of warriors. They expect to win easily. They expect the Alliance to collapse. They have no idea that humanity is about to change the rules of this war. If you care about of this, the problems of creating, the Alliance cried. On the tactical display, the Xelnari fleet began its attack, heading straight for Alliance Station Gamma. All human strike teams, go to your assigned ships. You know your missions. You know what is expected. The galaxy is watching, even though they don't know it yet. Admiral Morse smiled like a predator about to strike. Show them what happens when you wake the humans. Elif and reorganize our forces. Danny Carter stood up from the examination table. Sensors were still attached to his body, and data was still flowing to the monitors. What do you need us to do, Admiral? Morse's smile returned, sharp and dangerous like a predator ready to hunt. I need you to spread the word. Every human on this station needs to know the truth. And then we are going to design a training program that will turn janitors, technicians, and cargo handlers into the most formidable fighting force the galaxy has ever seen. He looked out the window at the stars beyond. The Xelnari think they are about to crush a weak opponent. Instead, they are going to learn why you should never underestimate the species that fought its way to the top of the food chain on its home planet. The testing had revealed the truth. Now came the hard part. Preparing for war. Never complained. We never showed off. And we hid our true abilities so well that even we forgot what we really are. The Admiral's communicator beeped. Sir, Fleet Surgeon, arriving in 5 minutes. Good. Morse looked at Danny with an expression that was half apology and half excitement. I am sorry, Carter. Your quiet life is over. If my theory is correct, if you represent normal human ability and not something special, then the Alliance has been sitting on its most powerful weapon for 30 years without knowing it. Danny looked down at his hands. These normal, ordinary hands that had just bent solid titanium like it was nothing. What do you need me to do, sir? Admiral Morse's smile was now the smile of a chess player who could see the whole game ahead. First, we test you properly. Then we test every human on this station. And then, Janitor Carter, we are going to have a very interesting conversation with the Alliance Council about what humanity's real role should be. Through the window behind them, stars glittered in the cold darkness of space. Somewhere out there, enemies were planning attacks. They were making strategies based on one big assumption. They thought humanity was weak. That assumption was about to be proven wrong, and nothing in the galaxy would ever be the same again.